Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of July, and it's 70 degrees. It's beautiful. This is, hey, what's going on around here? I'm Jeff Nodell. This is Heather Spalding, our 37th show, I think, or 37th week. It's really awesome. And our guest today, I've been waiting for this. I've been really looking forward to talking to you. This is the one and only head of the Joyce L. Sobel,
yes.
Sobel Family Resource Center, Jennifer Armstrong. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me to come and talk with you and with Heather, who we go way back.
Yes.
So all the nonprofits here are like equally important, I think, just except yours. Yours seems just a little bit more important than all the others because you do so much. It's so fundamental to the welfare of, what, 2,800 people?
Roughly 2,800 a year that we serve.
On just this island?
Yeah.
And the population is what, 7,000, give or take?
It fluctuates quite a bit, yeah.
But you're serving a very significant part of the population.
Yeah, wide cross-section. You know, I think one of the things to keep in mind when you talk about all the local nonprofits and then the work the Resource Center does is what many people don't realize is that the great majority of the programs and services that we deliver to the community are done in partnership with those other local agencies and nonprofits. Right. That's a critical thing to understand about. So we can sort of serve as a conduit, and we've got a great team of people, but you know, without the library, without county health and community services, Safe San Juan's,
recovery, all those things.
You know, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So it really is, you know, sort of across the board a collaborative effort.
How long have you been with the FRC?
I have been with the FRC 11 years. Can't believe it's been that long. Yeah.
What can you tell us about?
Been that long either.
It came as a surprise to me.
Tell us about Joyce Sobel.
Well, I didn't get to know Joyce as well as many people in the community did. Joyce moved here in the 70s. She had her roots in early childhood education. That was really her passion. And she had worked in that field back in Chicago for quite some time. She had done a stint in the Peace Corps as a young person, teaching school in East Africa. So it had some really remarkable life experience before she moved here to the island. And I think in moving here with her young family, she really started to recognize that there was a lack of sort of consolidated support services, especially for families with young children. And that was sort of the catalyst for her to start up the Family Resource Center. And it was very grassroots. Her first office was tiny little office above the swimming pool over in the fitness center. And the programs that were offered, which were based on, you know, play groups and programs for parents with little kids, were sort of scattered around the community. So there wasn't a central hub of where services were. They used, I think they had an unused room over at what was then the convalescence center where they'd set up and do play groups every week and travel around the community. So just grew over time from there. Joyce really had that vision of creating a place where all families of all backgrounds could come and connect and feel supported.
She'd be happy to see what it's grown into.
I hope so, yeah. She'd be happy, and she might, I don't know. But yeah, and she was definitely a part of, number one, very graciously onboarding me to come on board as the director when she retired. We spent a lot of time together. What I appreciated so much is she had created this wonderful center, but when she retired, she really made it clear that it was up to whoever was coming on board next to have their own vision for what things look like. but she was still actively involved. She helped us plan to expand our building, which we did so, and unfortunately she passed away during that process, so she never got to see our newly expanded building, which is really a shame.
What year was that?
That was in 2019, yeah.
Do you have any questions?
No, I'm just thinking about Joyce. I got to know her through Seroptimus, and I think she probably helped connect the FRC with Seroptimus too. We partnership together a lot as well.
Yeah.
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 That's all, not really a question.
She had this amazing
She really
knowledge
was,
of all
yeah.
the nuances of this community. I mean, she knew what was out there, how everything related, the nuances of how people operated. She definitely was a keen observer, and anytime some new project would come up or a question would come up, you know, her insights were always invaluable because she had lived here long enough and really observed life here and what motivated people, what worked, what didn't work.
And who might be able to help, you know. She was a
Exactly.
good, you know, networking person, I guess.
Yeah,
Tell us about your life.
my life. Well, originally from Southern California, like so many people up here, but moved up here in 2006 with my young children at the time. My husband had grown up in Seattle and spent a lot of time on Lopez, so it was kind of a familiar area for us. And originally, when I came up here, I was working remotely, which was really nice at the time because my girls were young and wanted to have some time at home with them. But I really missed doing hands-on work embedded in a community, so I was really happy when the opportunity to join the team at the Resource Center came along. So definitely a very quick introduction into how the community works and getting to know lots of people.
Do you remember the first time you saw San Juan Island?
First time I saw San Juan Island, yeah, it was in 2005 because we came up to look at a piece of property where we thought maybe we'd build a house. So it was the middle of winter. My husband was very intent on us building a house on Lopez Island because that's where he had spent a lot of his happy days as a kid. And we were moving up from Los Angeles, and Lopez was seeming pretty tiny.
So you needed to be the big city here.
So this was sort of our compromise locale. And he was swayed pretty quickly because we did come in the middle of winter. And he looked around and said, oh, there is a movie theater here and a Thai restaurant. Like, winters might be a little more manageable here. So, yeah. And we visited the local elementary school. I had asked to have a quick meeting with the principal there because we were considering moving here. And, of course, that was one of the primary concerns since we had school-age kids. And she was so lovely, and the school was just fantastic. And even walking in the door to have that meeting, some, little kids ran up to say hi to our kids and find out who they were, and just that feeling of welcomeness and openness in the community really struck me.
Do you ever miss Los Angeles?
All the time, but I wouldn't move back there. I mean, I love this place and now have been here almost 20 years, but I think I've liked everywhere I've lived. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time living in Brooklyn and New York City, loved that as an experience. Southern California is sort of my roots. I miss the diversity of Southern California, absolutely. And all the things there are to do there. Would I want to live there on a day-to-day basis? No, but still have a lot of family there and spend time going back and forth, yeah.
Is San Juan Island a generous place?
I think it is. Certainly is evidenced by the work we do at the Resource Center and the community support. And not just financial support, I mean hands-on, people getting involved.
Volunteers.
And really caring, you know. I think there's a depth of caring here because people know one another so well. It's hard to not care when it's faces you recognize and you know and you run into all the time.
What are a couple things, since you mentioned all the other places that you've been, what are a couple things that makes this place unique besides being an island, and how does that lead to some challenges with the FRC? Does that make sense?
Right. Well, I mean, I think one of the unique pieces to me, and this is just based on where I had lived before, which was in pretty large urban areas, is that it isn't as diverse here. And so creating an awareness that there are less evident ways in which people are dealing with very different challenges here feels like an important part of the work we've been trying to do at the Resource Center. I think, and you've probably seen this, it's easy, I think, for people visiting here or even maybe living here part-time to see the kind of idyllic part of island life and not realize that there are some big struggles here for people of all backgrounds. There is sort of a bigger bifurcation of economic standing and opportunity than in lots of communities. The other side about that is if you create some awareness about that, people care and they want to help make a positive difference. But that's been one of the biggest things, I think. You know, I think the other thing is I moved here thinking I was coming to this tiny rural remote island, which would be so different than living in Manhattan or Los Angeles, right? And I would say the level of lots of the services we have here, especially, you know, human services, because that's where I'm operating, in terms of our school system, our health care, our behavioral health support, the things that our county health and community services offices provide really are on par with most big cities.
Wow.
You know, I know that people feel frustration at times that, oh, there's a lack of this or a lack of that. But having come from working in very big systems of care, what I so often see is really a high quality of services out here and an accessibility to a lot of those things that is much more immediate than what you might experience.
The lines are shorter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind.
It is.
So the kinds of assistance, counseling, housing, medical, nutrition, transportation, utilities, it just touches almost everything in life. And programs, birth through 5, children, tweens, teens and young adults, mentoring, disability supports, behavioral health and wellness. How many people does it take to do all this?
So right now it takes 21.
It's a lot.
They're not all full-time.
Right.
We have a full-time equivalent of about 12. But yeah, it's been a lot of growth in a relatively short amount of time. When I started in 2013, we had a full-time equivalent of about 1.5.
Oh, wow.
So I was there a little less than half-time, and we had a part-time front desk person, and then a couple people who were doing very, very part-time, 6 to 8 hours a week of early childhood programming. So
Do you feel like you're fulfilling the totality of the need, or is there still more work to do?
Well, sure, there's always more work to do, right? I think that we're trying to be really mindful of not growing too fast.
Yeah.
We probably did grow a little too fast because of the pandemic, and it was it was kind of like, well, here are these needs, and someone's got to address them. And we found ourselves a little out of breath at the end of that stretch, as did so many organizations. However, I think that we've been really fortunate to have a great team of people evolve, all of whom are local islanders. And we've been lucky to have really low attrition rate, too. The whole team of people that sort of came on board leading up to and through the COVID pandemic have stuck around. So that's been lovely.
Now, did the pandemic kind of recalibrate the need? Is the need, like if it was on a chart, the need rose? Has it stayed there, or do you feel it receding
Nope,
in any
it's
way?
stayed there.
Yeah.
It has stayed there.
Do you think that's permanent?
I think some of it may be permanent. I think the biggest changes we saw in need were with behavioral health and housing. And I like to think that housing will not be a permanent crisis. I really hope so. We'll see. I'm sure we'll dive into that. Behavioral health is really interesting because I think we saw a huge increase in utilization of affordable behavioral health services, 300% increase. I think that was actually, in some ways, a silver lining of COVID in that it became destigmatized.
Yeah.
And people became more comfortable seeking mental health support and recovery support.
And that would definitely be hopefully a permanent reset.
Yeah. We'll see how the trends go, but it has not lessened at all in the past few years. Yeah.
We're going to take a little break for a couple minutes, and then we're going to return and talk more about affordable housing.